How's it going, guys? We have buttons now. I bought a new tripod because this little dinky piece of shit that I've been using for the longest time, it kind of just crapped out on me. It's wrapped up in duct tape to make it barely functional, but we have better things now. I'm Lalaxina, for those of you that are clicking on my videos for the first time. I ride electric unicycles, and I post at random points in time when people are in need or whenever I feel like it, I guess. Today we're going to be talking about riding backwards, but before that I want to start off with going over idling. Buddy just hit me up asking me about getting tips for riding backwards, but there's more to it. Because what happens is you're relearning how to ride a wheel all over again. So if you can get some main fundamentals that you can use for, say, like riding forward, you can kind of reverse engineer that and ride in reverse. Let's give an example of what I'm saying for idling. We want to learn how to idle before riding backwards, just because what happens is when you're going slow, you're kind of doing this whole thing whether you like it or not. Say this is your unicycle, this is the ground, like a top-down view looking at the ground. Rather than just going forward and backwards for your idle, what I tell people to do is to do slight crescents. The reason that I say to do a crescent is similar to like analog unicycles or acoustic. The way people ride is they do crescents because they're balancing both forward and backward, just as well as side to side on each end point of the crescent. Same thing with an EUC. The most brain dead way to do this is literally just make twists. That'll cover both forward and backwards, but you look like an idiot. Just kidding, any movement that we really do while idling is not exactly the most graceful. Unless you're well practiced, then I guess, but even so, we're a bunch of nerds. Anyways, yeah, if you're twisting, then you're restabilizing both forward and sideways. Upon making crescents, it's a little bit smoother, tiny bit less stressful, but once you get that down, you're self-balancing both forward and sideways. Anyways, let's get to making a little tutorial. Fuck. We have a button. Okay, so I brought in 4 different wheels to just get you guys started, because not everybody has the same wheel, and at least we can show you different mounting points that are important for each like size of wheel. We'll start off with a Kingsong 14D. So say like a lot of people have, when starting off, the Kingsong 16S. Mounting position is pretty similar. But just like for any wheel, you're going to be really emphasizing the endpoints. So your ball of your foot, so right here, and your heel, those two are going to be centered points on the pedals, pretty much even with these edges. Along with that, I'm going to have you make sure that you're putting even pressure, I mean not even, but pressure along that center line. So you're taking center line, you're taking your endpoints on your ball of your foot and your heel, you're making a triangle. That's your mounting point. If you notice a lot of riders on these vehicles, they all kind of mount and dismount in that same exact motion. Normally their legs are at that same light press at that center point. Because if they don't, then there's a higher likelihood for them to like twist off and shift with that uneven force. Anyway, so figure out your mounting position. That's super important. And then what happens is when people push off and mount and dismount, Really, it's get into mounting position and hop on. For the idle, I tell people to get into that mounting position and maintain that for one leg, as far as like the ball of your foot and your heel pressure. The other foot, you end up kind of like, you kind of switch between putting pressure on the front foot or front heel and the back heel. So it turns into kind of like a modified heel toe motion for I guess your base foot and your base foot and your re-stabilizing / balancing foot. I don't even know if it's called a balancing foot, but really this is where you're putting most variables on the secondary foot. So I'm putting pressure toe side and then heel side. I'm over exaggerating this motion right now, but doing that, I'm making sure that I'm making a twist, a little bit of a twist on the tire. And while I'm doing that, it's even pressure here. Other foot is constantly changing. Same thing in the opposite direction. I'm putting pressure on the heel side, and then putting back pressure on the heel side, and then putting back pressure on the toe side. Sometimes you don't even really need contact, but when you do make contact, make sure it's at that center point. So then when people are kind of like riding, you can do the twist. Like I like doing a little bit of a 90, like that, but it just depends. So then really when you're riding backwards is, you have that, you're in the mounting point, and then you extend each time you're making curves. So forward, back, 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 and then eventually as you go, you end up making those turns more and more narrow to the point where you end up kind of just doing a little bit of wobble, but eventually that wobble gets even more controlled so that it ends up looking just like you're riding straight, just as you are when you're riding forward. If you don't know how to ride forward straight, then I apologize. Good luck seeing a professional. I don't know, maybe I'll make a video about it later. We'll see. Next wheel. I brought up the 14D because a lot of people buy this as like a sort of a trick wheel, but more so just something to putt around on as a secondary wheel. Unless this is your only wheel, then congrats, you're gonna get a second wheel. That's just a matter of time. Yeah, same thing, mounting position. Make sure you're squatted forward, a little bit of a Captain Morgan where you just drop your hip, and then make sure your leg is making contact with that centered point. So when you're there, you're making contact, and then once again, outside of your base foot, if you're not using you're using your base foot for one, and then your other foot is just doing modified pressure between forward and back. Always keep your body upright while you're doing that. That's hard to explain, like how to keep your body upright, but I mean really it's just fucking stand and make sure the wheel stays underneath you. And then if you start falling backwards, then make sure you get this wheel back underneath you. Good luck. For some people that are looking to learn, say if they have a spouse or a friend, take their shoulder, press down, even pressure for both of you. That pretty much creates a bridge between the two people. In my, I guess, teaching / learning tutorial, I'll probably throw you guys through that, or at least give a better example when I'm not hanging out alone in my garage. Anyways, yeah, it's the same motion. Because the M10-4 has a slightly wider tire, I don't have to try as hard to keep the wheel restabilizing. And then as I'm making these carves, I don't have to do the same aggressive angle as I was with the 14D. Like, yeah, sure, you could get your twists in, but because it's a wide tire, it'll restabilize just that little bit easier. And then even for doing the just general balancing forward and backward, because it's a wider tire, you have more of a platform to balance on. But yeah, it's a thing. Anyways, let's move on to the next. EXN. This one's about 70 pounds-ish. I've done a bit of extra work to this one. I mean, I just did extra pads, new firmware on it. These pedals are from Erides. Go check them out. They're pretty awesome. Fi's made me these all black pedals. They were labeled as the Noir. They might still be in the shop right now. They were supposed to be a limited run. If they're not, then awesome. But yeah, definitely check these guys out. Anyways, but when you get these pedals, take off the heel side, because I don't really agree with it. The toe side wedge is pretty cool because it helps kind of conform to your natural, or whatever your shoes are designed to be shaped to do. Anyway, it fills that little bit of gap. It's not necessary, but it feels comfy. It's like a little hub for your foot if you're into that kind of thing. Anyways, yeah, same idling. A little bit slower because it's a chunkier, just bigger wheel. It's the same exact concept. It's pressure in, pressure out. So, yeah, once you have the base foot, then you can do smaller controls between the two. Like right there, I'm putting pressure on the heel side and then the toe side. Like you don't even necessarily have to use your heel and ball of your foot, as long as you're using something to apply pressure forward and backwards as you're making a controlled crescent, you're good. Also beware when you're doing them with, I mean, any wheel really, the longer you do pendulums or the longer you do any like idling, you're gonna overheat your wheel over time. It doesn't happen instantly, but as you more aggressively push forward, push back on a constant basis, it's gonna heat up. Yeah. Anyways, next wheel. We have the EX30. This one was given to me by Limang from EUC Underground. If you're looking for a wheel for a pretty decent price, pick one of these up. You're gonna get a significant discount, but it's at the exchange of knowing how to work on your wheel, or at least having a friend local to you that can work on your wheels. Liam is not in charge of doing your repairs for you, but I don't know, maybe you can figure something out. Anyways, get a wheel at a nice price. Dude, buy with Liam. Underground. UNG. Liam, you make it really hard for people to find things, but it don't matter. It's funny. Yeah, anyways. Ignore these lower pads, they're stupid, but I did wedge these out to make it less miserable of the, it makes it hurt your knees less when you're riding, even though it's still chunky as shit. But anyways, it's the same thing. With a big wheel, once you get it going and once you understand where your center is, where the center of the wheel is, it makes a world of difference. So then make sure that you're balancing on that axis. Note how I'm not necessarily like banking as aggressively as I was on the smaller wheels. That's mostly because my pedal height is higher. So then the wheel kind of gets more offset from me than, or with less effort, because your pedals are so high up, and then it pulls away and then you're here and then you're good as soon as you pull it back in. Anyways, yeah, you can do this on any wheel, provided the wheel is programmed right and it allows for you to be able to make rotations without fucking yourself up. Anyways, enjoy your riding, don't eat shit, wear your helmets when it's reasonable. I mean, preferably always, but you won't. So, don't die. Love you.
Ah, fuck, we're still recording.